We didn't have to reinvent anything. You know, something I'd like to add to the blower story is all the blower manifolds, the manufacturers machine everything straight and do everything right, let's say. Then when you bolt the heads down on a block with these composition gaskets that crush, the head actually bows. The ends are tighter than the center. It bows, right? Having to do with where the surface area that it's being squashed, and at the end of the head there's some bolts that don't have to squish stuff that's further, where the ones in between have to squish stuff on both sides of the head bolts. There's nothing on the far side, right?
Right.
And so then you bolt this manifold onto a curved head. So now the manifold is curved, and now you take your blower and bolt it onto a.
And it's torqued, right.
Everything's a mess, right?
Right.
And you could see that in all the wear patterns, and we're going, this is terrible, So leading up to that, we decided one time that it was bending the heads, and we were going to unbend the heads, and we were really going to be clever. So we took the head gaskets and we cut out a notch, just like somebody took a bite out of the gasket all the way around, so we could stick a feeler gauge in, right? So we torque the head down all nice, get out our feeler gauge, we make us a map. Oh yeah, okay, we got...
Or just going around the perimeter.
Yeah.
Checking it like every couple inches or whatever.
Yeah. And so we draw us a map. Oh yeah, look at that. It's at the ends it's only 25, and in here it's 41, or we get, okay, so now we come up with a new torque pattern. Okay, less torque on the ends. So now we're clamping evenly, we're crushing everything evenly. Oh boy, we got the hot tip. We took it to Long Beach, and the thing got right to the tower, which was probably, 50 feet from the start line? And it spit the head gaskets out both ends of the head. Both heads, right? So anyway, back to just bending the head, right? Torquing it like a reasonable person would do. And then, so we went through a bunch of other things that related to this. And so finally we figured out that we needed to torque the head like everybody else did. And so we would take all used gaskets, and we'd take a brand new block, or new, junkyard block, and we'd take everything off the pan rail, so the pan rail's dead flat, rub it all with a file, and then we'd bolt our heads on with used gaskets, the right bolts, head studs, nuts, torques, all that stuff. Bolt the manifold on with used gaskets, all torqued and everything. And then we'd go over to this Blanchard grinding place. And this Blanchard grinding place, the table was as big as this room, maybe 10 foot in diameter. And we'd put our block up there, bolt our heads, torque it, assemble our motor right on the Blanchard grinder, and he would grind the top of the manifold, right? And that just fixed everything, and it made the blower belt last longer, because sometimes the blower is sitting this way on the engine, so the belt wants to run off one end or the other, and it eats up the belt. And anyway, the belt was the major benefactor in the whole thing. The belt lasted longer. We got it down where we could run those things for a month, running maybe 6-7 events a month.
And the belts available at the time were just for like industrial machine use. They weren't supercharger drive belts.
No.
It was to turn like a fan at a factory or something.
A conveyor belt or something.
Right.
And they have piano wire in them.
So you were really overstressing them for what they were made to do.
Oh, so much so that if you went down to the maker of the belts, I don't know, they had a factory office in East LA off East Olympic. You go down there, and when you walked in and said, I want to buy this blower belt, they say, what are you going to use it for? And if you said anything to do with cars, they wouldn't sell it to you. And later you could buy them through the speed shops, but you couldn't buy them from them. Mm-hmm. So we'd go down and say, oh yeah, we got this conveyor belt, You sure about that? Because the length and the width and the pitch, come on, look at you guys, right? No, honest, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Because you could get them cheaper. And then later the speed shop guys, somehow they got plugged into the deal, and I don't know if they got better quality or not. Probably not. Because the piano, they had piano wire wrapped around. Well, the ends of the piano wire would come out and it would just beat the frame to death. You know,
Or
it's
would it?
like a judo chop kind of a thing.
If you look at the Hawaiian that's in the museum that you went to see,
Yes.
you'll see that the body's all tore up right there,
right where the
line
blower
with
belt
the
is. Yeah.
because of those pieces of piano wire.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was the problem with the belts getting old, is finally the end, however they had it secured, the end would come loose and it would just start beating everything to death, and then it would just unravel.
Right.
And without the idler pulley, the belt wasn't being bent backwards either, which probably helped.
Yes, it did. That definitely helped, getting rid of the idler. And we never bent it back severely like a lot of guys did. A lot of guys had combinations of heights and all of that, and belt lengths, because you could only get a certain, whether about 2-3 belt lengths you could get.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it kind of depended on if you had the Hawaiian manifold or the Krager or everything was different, you know. And then some guys have some goofy ratio, and so the pulley diameter enters into it, and blah, blah, blah. And we had ours worked out where if you wanted to change the ratio, you had to kind of mess around. And then we had a whole stack of shims from thick metal. It looked like a gasket, but thick, different thicknesses. And we just put this whole sandwich down, put a gasket, a shim, a gasket, a shim, a gasket. So we could make it come out however we wanted later on.
Did you ever have a manifold pressure gauge, or do you know how much boost you were running, or
No.
did you just go by overdrive percentages, or?
No, we just figured if we either want more or we want less. We don't know why. We just, because we went as high as 36 over, and at 36 over, these old junk blowers, they make so much heat that nothing
Detonate.
happens. But, well, we didn't have any trouble with the detonation, but it just takes more and more power to turn it, so the belt goes away. The performance doesn't come up, and it's just eating your parts, right? So the favored combination, this is 31 over 30 or 29, 30, 31, right in there.
Could you show that picture? Hold it up again, please. Thank you.
That was
Yeah.
our favorite combination.
31
that
over?
was the happy zone.
Yeah.
31 over, huh? Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not sure. It was somewhere 29, 30, or 31, like 1.29, 1.30, 1.31. Somewhere right in there was a pulley combination.
And the belt fit, and the motor was happy, and everything was fine.
Yeah, it was the best combination we ever had, and we ran that for a long, long time.
And that was to spin the blower at 12,000 RPM when it was designed for 2,400.
Oh, that blower.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Blower was
wow.
unhappy.
And diesels like to run about 24 to 2,800 maximum, six-cylinder GMC. So they built the blower that would live on that engine. And then us crazy hot rodders turned them 4 times the speed that they were supposed to operate in and expected them to live.
Oh, and then did every other bad thing in the world to him.
Yeah.
I was telling Bob the other day that the spline shaft that goes into the end of the rotor that the gears hook onto, that thing takes terrible abuse because it's having to transmit this power into the rotor, right? And when the blower sneezes, the rotor's trying to send it back. So it has a tapered pin, just a standard tapered pin. You buy the tapered reamer and the pins and pound them in. It would have one pin, and everybody would put in another 3 or 4. There's plenty of places to put them.
Yeah.
And so you put all these pins in, otherwise the shaft would just twist off and everything would get all disconnected inside. So the gears would be spinning, but the rotors wouldn't, or one rotor wouldn't, and the other rotor's trying to chase that rotor. And
Not to mention you're throwing fuel through this, too.
yeah.
Which creates a whole...
And the guy has
interesting ballgame.
sidestepped the clutch.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of badness is going on right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tom, as we work our way up the motor, we're leaving the blower and going into the fuel injector, which
Okay.
is the heart of the surfer's combination. That's what everybody talks about.
Right?
Before we get too far deep into the fuel system, I want to talk to you about the story of the experience that you had at Mickey's that day when they were running that little blower dyno, and when they introduced the liquid into the intake, and what you observed that day, and how that transfers into the surfer's fuel injection story.
Okay. one time Bob Skinner and I are down at Mickey Thompson's, and behind the speed shop, across the alley, were several of his businesses, the piston department. I don't know what all the departments were, but there was a little yard, and in this yard they had a small block Chevy on a rolling stand they could roll around. And the small block Chevy drove a 671 blower right off the end of the crank. I mean, it wasn't a transmission or anything, it was just engine blower. And then they used that blower, they were going to pump air into the shop to use in a flow bench, some kind of airflow testing they were doing. And so Mickey's got this thing running, and it's not hooked up, it's not blowing air into the building, it's just sitting there running. And I don't know, he was fussing with the motor, getting it to run right or do something. And so there's a water hose laying there, and Mickey looks at this water hose, and he goes over and he turns it on, and he just sticks it right in the inlet of the blower, and it stopped the Chevy cold. And we went, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know why he did it, but you know, Mickey, he was a wild man. And anyway, when you think about it, this blower, let's say the case is like this, these lobes are coming around, and this is a decreasing gap here, you know, this round thing is chasing it into a narrow spot. Anyway, it's just one more reason why you don't want to pump too much liquid through the top of the blower.
Right, because there's nowhere for it to go.
Right.
As those two parts mesh together with the decreasing clearances, you come to a point where it might even almost hydraulic lock, which is kind of what you observed.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why it stopped the small
Right.
block Chevy.
Right.
Of course, he's got a full garden hose too, not just a little fuel going in. But anyway, just one more thing that made me think that, ooh, this is all the more reason why we need less and less liquid going through that blower. And so all of this is kind of a sideline to the idea that you have to atomize the fuel. And it's hard to atomize nitromethane, as we've discussed earlier. And
You started with the stock Hilborn setup, which is 4 nozzles on one side of the butterflies.
yes, on the top,
Right.
above the blower.
Right.
And no, this is before port nozzles came around.
Correct. So how long did you run the car, do you think, before the green light came on to add the 4 nozzles on the far side of the butterflies?
It came on right away, but we had to wait till the parts kind of got figured out and made, and pretty soon Hilborn offered it, and then as soon as they offered it, then we bought it from them. It was just a matter of the plumbing and all of that, making all of that work out.
Mm-hmm.
Did you use a Hilborn over an Enderley for any particular reason?
Well, one reason they were right there in Santa Monica. They were in the
Okay.
behind Ingles
Makes
Cam
sense.
Factory,
Makes sense.
and so they were our homeboys. So, but Hilborn was good stuff, and Enderley was a brand new company. Their stuff was kind of,
Marginal.
well, they were trying things, and Ken Enderley's a brilliant guy, and he was just trying to work his deal out. Some of his early stuff was, you know, they had those shower head.
Well, the barn door was the first one.
Oh yeah, barn door, boy, that was something.
Yeah. But this was like, again, you're starting off in the latter part of 63. 1963 is when you're buying your setup, and you just felt that Hilborn was what you wanted to go with, right?
Oh yeah, it was proven good stuff. It didn't have, and it was already obvious that like that Enderley barn door was.
And there was Gene Adams too.
Yeah, you had Gene Adams
Oh,
too.
okay.
Right.
There we go.
And Adams could give you a starting point.
And which is what we started with, whatever he
Yeah.
gave us.
Yeah.
And